All right. So yesterday you had an assignment because there were no live. So it was a review of radar, and it was also review questions. And I must tell you, some of you guys totally killed it. Did so awesome. You followed directions. You actually used radar. So some of you totally killed it. Did super good job. Some of you guys wrote me like 2 sentences. Guess what? 2 sentences is not 2 paragraphs. So some of you could have definitely done better. Some of you will not be earning all the credit because you did not write nearly enough. I told you the directions. I gave you the radar setup, what everything was. And if I saw you didn't have enough yesterday, I even told you, hey, you don't have enough. Make sure you add some more. So we're just going to quickly talk about it real quick, talk about some answers. So the first question was, what information did Lewis and Clark gather on their expedition, and why did they have this expedition? So you have to first restate your question. So you could have said, the information Lewis and Clark gathered on their expedition was blah, 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 blah. You could have said, Lewis and Clark, blank, blank, blank on the expedition. You could have started off with Lewis and Clark went on an expedition in 1804. Lewis and Clark gathered a ton of information on this journey. They gathered information about plants, animals, Native Americans, and much more. They went on this expedition to map out the area that had been recently purchased by Thomas and Jefferson. That was Mark's. Good job, Mark. So, or you could have also started with, according to the text, Lewis and Clark were sent on this expedition by. There are many different ways to start that, but remember, you have to restate the question. And some of us are still struggling with restating the question because A, you're just not doing it, or B, you're just writing the question again. When you're restating the question, you're turning it from a question to a statement. You're not just typing the question that Mrs. Kneifel typed. That makes no sense. Then you're just typing the question. You have to restate it. Make it from a question to a statement. But we do know that they went on most of us had somewhat of the right answer. We just didn't necessarily use radar. We know that they went on this expedition because Thomas Jefferson sent them on it. Thomas Jefferson was the president. He bought this huge piece of land and he didn't have time to go explore. So he hired them essentially in a group of 50 men and he said, hey, go check it out. And they didn't just go for fun, they kept detailed journals. They looked at plants. They looked at animals. They, met with Native Americans. They were essentially looking for a waterway. Remember, that's what they were actually sent out for, to find that waterway, to see if there was one that connected the east to the west, which there wasn't necessarily. But so there were 2 questions in that one question. I'm just letting you know some of you guys really did a good job, and some of you guys need to use more effort. 5 words, 10 words, not gonna cut it. We know how to use radar. We have been practicing it the entire year. Mia, what's up?
Is it okay if you start it with a sentence? Because I started mine with a sentence and then I answered the question.
Yes, that's fine. Mrs. Kneifel loves to start it out like, that's kind of like how the one example I just said was Lewis and Clark went on an expedition in 1804. I'm just setting up for the question, right? I didn't even say anything about the question. I'm just saying, hey, these people went on an expedition. So there were plenty of different ways to start it. And I'm still reading through some of them, but I'm just letting you know some of you guys could have done a better job because all of these answers were in the book. And, the text evidence was right there for us. It literally said that they made maps. They brought back different specimens and all these crazy things. So hopefully you understood that question as a whole. Then there was a second question. That means 2 questions, 2 paragraphs, because you were using radar for both. You shouldn't have made it one big answer. Should have been 2 paragraphs. The next one were, what kinds of hardships did people experience as they traveled west? The first thing we have to do is restate our question. That does not mean retype the question. That means reword it into a statement. I can say that till I'm blue in the face. We've got to restate our question. You could have restated it like, people experienced many hardships as they traveled west, or some pioneers experienced hardships as they traveled west. The hardships were yada, yada, yada. So there were a ton of different ways you could have started this, and people started it in all different ways. Let me go to a different class. I was just looking at my classes. Let's go to another class. You could say there were many kinds of hardships people experienced as they traveled west, which we knew there were. And then you could have listed a mountain of hardships. Remember, hardships is one of our vocabulary words, and that's when you go about things and you don't have enough. Hardships could have included having to walk so much, having to give up some of your items, disease and sickness, lack of food, lack of clean water, bad weather, losing family members, losing animals, dehydration, starvation. There were so many things you could have listed. I don't care what you listed. You just needed to list them. But the important thing was you were listing them using radar, okay? You had to list them using radar. You needed to look in your book. You needed to maybe add a quote and say, according to paragraph 6, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know what paragraph 6 was. You could have talked about the hardships of crossing a river. There were so many hardships. You could have put in abundance, and lots of you did. Some of you guys really listed a lot, which is fantastic. But I'm telling you, some of you guys are still only writing me a sentence, and that's not going to cut it, okay? Even 2 sentences is not enough. Restating your question, answer, conclusion. You should have at least 4 to 5 sentences per answer, okay? Because we have practiced radar so many times. So that's just a little synopsis. Some of you guys still haven't done this homework. You need to get it done, okay? Because now it's late. But there was just my little synopsis on your homework, and now we're going to move on, okay? And I got some questions to ask you. So, if we go to, which page was I thinking? If we go to Get Packing, which is on 259, Get Packing, where they talked about how they were packing things. I want someone to tell me how this is structured. Is it sequential? Is it problem solution? Is it cause and effect? I'm going to reread it to you, and I want you to think, how does the author structure these paragraphs in general? What did the author try to do? Most pioneers used oxen to pull their wagon. At the end of the journey, oxen could be used to plow a field. They were strong enough to pull 2,000 pounds. A wagon carried everything a pioneer needed to begin a new life. Pioneers usually took equipment to repair the wagon, farm tools, seeds for planting, personal items such as shoes and blankets. They also brought food such as flour, bacon, coffee, and rice. There were no grocery stores if they forgot something. Trading posts along the way sold some of the food and other items, but everything was expensive and often sold out. Families often packed too much. Then they had to lighten their loads along the trail so the oxen wouldn't get worn out with too much weight. Without oxen, pioneers would have to carry their belongings. Furniture like trucks and beds were the first to be left behind. One pioneer left her apron and 3 pieces of bacon. Eventually, there was so much garbage along the trails, people didn't need a guide or a map along their way. Unless someone was sick or the weather was bad, people walked besides their wagons. This was mainly to save the space in the wagon for food and to make a load lighter for oxen. Also, the wagons were bouncy and uncomfortable. Good thing about the bouncing was that pioneers used the motion to churn butter. Would anyone like to tell me maybe what text structure you think the author was using there? Were they using cause and effect? Was he using, that'd be subtitles. Were they using problem solution to set it up? Were they using sequential order? What do we think, Michaela?
I think it's I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, that's okay. Anyone else have their hand up? Presley, your hand's up.
Is it cause and effect?
So I feel like you could make a case for either cause and effect or problem solution. So I feel like it's more problem solution because we think about, for example, we have a problem, we need to move our wagon. What's the problem? Or what's the solution? We use oxen. Okay, then we have oxen. That's a problem. What do we do with the oxen later? Well, then the oxen can plow the field. Families often pack too much. What was the solution for that? They got rid of it along the road. So that could be cause and effect as well, but it could be either or. So I would have taken either or. You could say it's problem solution, or you could say it's answer. You could say that it is cause and effect. I think it's better for problem and solution, just because the problem was there was too much weight. Solution, you got rid of some of the weight. Where cause and effect, cause too much weight, effect, then that would be the oxen were weighed down. Instead, we already know the solution because they got rid of the stuff. Does that make sense? Like problem, we need to pull the wagon. We already have the solution. The oxen can pull it. Otherwise, it'd be cause, we need to pull the wagon. What's the effect of that? We had to find an animal. So it's just that the author is giving us the problem and the solution. This was just a good paragraph to exemplify that. Could they just go out on a whim and like, you know what, I'm going to start my journey today? Or was there more planning involved? What do we think? Someone tell me. Was it, on a whim? Was there planning involved? What types of things did they have to start with before they even started going? Abigail, what do you think?
They had to have more planning.
Yes, they definitely had to have more planning. They had to think, what can I bring? What should I leave behind? This definitely wasn't a trip that people made lightly. So that packing to me was problem solution. Now, not every single one of these sections was a problem solution, and that's fine. Remember, this author, it is informational text, and lots of times, since it's not just a narrative, lots of times informational text is categorized by subtitles and subcategories. That way, it's all about the same thing, moving west, but this part was about packing. This part was about the schedule. This part was about the weather. I don't really know if weather was one of them. So that is how the author decided to break up the story as a whole, to give us as much information as possible, but for it to make sense by using the different subtitles. Now, let's talk about central and main idea. Can someone remind me what central and main idea is? Remember, they're interchangeable. Central and main idea mean the same thing, but what is it? Someone I haven't talked to yet, raise your hand. Dylan Kelly, what is it, sir?
Is it what you learned?
Kind of. Well, we do learn what the main thing is, but how can we define central or main idea, Paisley?
Are you like asking like what it means, kind of?
Yes. If I said, hey, what's the definition of main or central idea? Tell me what that is. What is it?
It's like what the story is mostly about.
Right, what the story is mostly about. Now, as a whole, we could say the main idea of exploring the Wild West is about how pioneers went west. That would be a whole general statement. But we could also find a central or main idea for each one of our subtitle sections. Every single one of them, we could find something. So if we go to Independence Rock on page 261, I'm going to read that to you, and I want you to be thinking, what is the main idea of this section, or the central idea? What is the overall point of this? Independence Rock represented the halfway point on the trail. Children and their parents looked forward to carving their names and leaving messages on Independent Rock. It was a significance because people needed to reach it by July 4th or risk getting caught in mountain storms farther west. This giant rock rose 128 feet high and to some looked like a beach whale. If you visit Independence Rock in Wyoming, you can see the names of many pioneers and the dates they were there. Now, what is the main idea, the central idea? If someone was like, hey, what was that section about? I don't need you to tell me the entire thing. I just want you to tell me the main point. What is the main point? Central idea. If you want to raise your hand, raise your hand. I might call on you. Angelina?
The main idea of the Independence Rock is to tell you, well, the main idea about it is about the rock. It's about what the people hope to do with the rock and how they want to carve it and put their little things on it. And that's what the main idea is about.
All right, so I think you went a little bit too deep on the main idea. I would say those are supporting details about the rock. Would anyone else like to give it a try on what the main idea is? So, Angelina, I think you did really good supporting details that, hey, people wanted to put their name on it. It was a really large rock. What was the main idea, Mia?
What the Independence Rock is?
Yeah, what it is. I mean, what if someone said this pen was a rock? I don't know. The main idea is that it is a rock that people wanted to reach? Halfway point. Someone wrote that Independence Rock was a halfway point. So the main idea is, if Mrs. Kneifel had to write this on a test, what is the main idea of Independence Rock? Mrs. Kneifel would say, Independence Rock was a halfway point on the journey west, period. It was a rock, and it signified the halfway point. And then, if you wanted to add supporting details, you could say how tall it was. You could say that people carved their name. You could say why people wanted to reach it, before July 4th. All those would be supporting ideas or supporting details for the main idea, okay? It's the halfway point. What else was I going to say? This is a question. This is a synthesizing question. So you're going to use what you might know about me or what maybe you don't know about me to answer this question. So if we look on 263 under trail food, it talked about what meats they took. They took bacon and ham. Why would they take bacon and ham? Does anyone know why they'd take bacon and ham? Bacon and ham. Anyone know? Jaden?
For protein.
That's a definite thing. You need protein. You can get proteins from other things too, but protein, that was the protein they ate. But why did they choose those proteins? Why didn't they choose ground beef or chicken? Why did they specifically chose those meats? Gage?
Maybe because the other meats go bad faster.
Yes, so those are. So bacon and ham are like cured meats. You can cure them with salt or like pre-cook or like smoke them and cook them and stuff. So they do not spoil as easy as other meats. So that's why they are really good meats to take. And ham and bacon, in case you didn't know, both come from pigs. So anyways, the meats can be cured and they just last a longer time. That's all. And then same with the other foods. They used dried fruit and rice. Why would we use dried fruit and rice? Like a dried apple instead of a regular apple. Why would we use rice? Does anyone know those answers? Why would we take those foods? It's kind of similar just like to the meat thing. Why would we use those types though? Molly?
Because those foods don't go bad.
Right, those foods aren't going to go bad as fast. Rice, uncooked rice can last like forever in your cabinet. And dried fruits, well, they're dried. They're not going to spoil. They'd be like potato chips, So the pioneers, that's another step. They had to plan ahead and bring things they knew they were going to last long. A regular apple is only going to last 2 weeks. A dried apple is going to last a much longer. All right. Can someone remind me what nooning meant? It was in daily schedule. What was nooning for? What was nooning for? Jacqueline, I haven't heard from you today. Jacqueline.
I forgot to put my hand down from last.
Okay. Nooning is on page 262. What was the point of it? There was a super specific thing happening with nooning. What was it? Let's pick on someone I haven't talked to right now. Mrs. Kneifel's going to scroll through her thing, and wherever I land, guess what? You're getting picked on. Whee! Okay, that was my own name. That's not going to be very helpful. Brooklyn, are you here? Do you remember what nooning was for?
No, sorry.
Keeps. Well, Rainier, you raised your hand.
Nooning means stopping like towards the noon and taking a break.
Yeah, remember these were animals. Animals couldn't pull things for 12 hours straight. They had to stop and take that break. It was a rest for the animals, and really it was probably a rest for everyone as well. So, good job. And guess what? If you didn't know that answer, all you had to do was look in your book. Okay? You guys are capable of that. You guys are capable of looking in your book. Okay? Okay. All right, I'm trying to think if there were any other really important questions I really wanted you to talk about. Oh, why do you think the author added those couple then and now sections? What was the author doing there? By adding then and now, the author was using what type of structure? Blank and blank. The author used what type of structure by adding then and now? Bryden?
Maybe something like what was different from then and then how it is today.
Yeah, which is called what? It's a certain type of thing. You're totally dead on. You just got to tell me what it is. You know what it's called?
No, I don't remember.
All right. Mia, you look like you really want to answer. Okay, you try.
Compare and contrast.
Right. Instead of the author saying compare and contrast, they said then and now. So they're saying, hey, look, this was then and this was now. We're contrasting, showing you how it's different. 15 million back then would be like billions today. So, yeah. And I do, even though this is informational text, I do like that the author was able to, the illustrator was able to show us things. So if you look in the middle, the first page, remember, it had that map. And then there was that map legend or map key that showed us, where they started, Independence, Missouri. And then it showed us the different types of trails people took. Another great picture that I really, really liked that we talked about a little bit yesterday was the picture on the daily schedule one, where it showed us what it might have looked like, how they got in a circle. And it talked about the benefits of having the circle instead of a big long line. This is an opinion question. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to answer this question. This is just an opinion. I want to know what you think, okay? So the question is, yes, Mia, but you're going to have time. Don't worry. This is my last question. Then we'll move on to that, okay, Mia? So the question is, do you think, personally, the trip was worthwhile for the people who went west? What do you think? The people that were like, hey, I'm going to move west. Boom. Do you think it was worthwhile to them? Why or why not? If you want to answer, raise your hand, and I'm going to call on a few of you. I'm just curious. What do you think? You think it was worthwhile for them or not? Brooklyn, your hand is up. Tell me, was it worthwhile for them? Was it not worthwhile for them to move on west?
Yes, probably because they probably end up end up finding gold and became like rich and stuff with the gold.
All right, so so you think totally worthwhile for some people because some people might have gotten rich. All right, maybe, hey, a move might be good if you're going to get rich. Michaela, what do you think? Why do you think maybe it was worth it or not worth it for them?
I think it was worth it because, in the end, they were happy, from their move.
All right. So you think that, people's happiness in the end was worth it. Mark is throwing some things in the chat. He said people were discovering new things, which was a good benefit. Some people got land. Oh, yeah, some people barely had to pay for land. So you might think that's worth it. That, hey, they got 100 free acres. That might be worth it to you. Paisley, what do you think? Worth it, not worth it? Why or why not?
Yes, because they got to discover plants and animals, and they also wrote about the Native Americans they met.
All right. Cool. Eden, what do you think? I haven't heard from you today. Eden Swanson.
I think yes, because they get a whole new job too, and the job could be really good.
All right. So there was different, not just jobs, but there were different opportunities in the West. So I think for lots of people, it probably was worth the move. But then you also have to think some people, didn't actually get to make it home, which is just crazy to think because some people died along the way because some of it was super dangerous. But you guys did a great job answering my questions today. Like I said, if you didn't already do your homework from yesterday, you need to do that ASAP. But it is our 5-question quiz day. And guess what? We're going to go through it together. And then you still have 15 minutes to get it done. It should only take you about 15 minutes. So no one has an excuse not to do this. Yes, Mia, that's definitely a downfall. Native Americans lost what they had. So that's why, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? So question 1, remember, you can use your book for this. Please use your book for this. Every single answer is in the book. I already looked them up myself. Okay. So According to the passage, how were mountain men helpful to explorers and pioneers? So go find out where we talked about mountain men. And was it because they traded small animals for their fur? They traded goods with Native Americans. They acted as guides, sharing their knowledge of the land with travelers, or they went ahead of pioneers to build a safe trail west for those in search of fortune. What were the mountain men good for? That's in the book. You can find it. No one should be getting it wrong. Number 2. What did Thomas Jefferson, hope Lewis and Clark would do? We already talked about this today. In fact, I specifically said this answer, so hopefully you were paying attention. What was Jefferson's overall goal? Was it to become missionaries? Did he want them to write a book? Did he want them to trade beaver pelts, or did he want them to find a waterway across the United States? The continent would be the United States, North America. Why did people leave furniture along the Oregon Trail? This is definitely in there. We've talked about this many times. To mark the trail for other travelers, to make the wagon lighter for the oxen, because old furniture was considered garbage, because they wanted to buy new furniture for their new lives. First off, there's no furniture stores, okay? Any furniture they were making themselves. So it's definitely not that last one. 4, the passage says the scientists still study plant specimens gathered by Thomas and Clark. What is the meaning of specimens as it is used in the passage? Okay, you're going to have to really think about this. If something can be gathered, okay, gathered and moved, can sketches be gathered and moved? Samples be gathered and moved? Models or copies? That one's the most challenging one, I think. What caused the most pioneer deaths along the trail? This is absolutely in the book as well. Was it getting cholera from polluted water? Getting caught in mountain storms? Being crushed by frightened cattle? Okay, we didn't hear anything about frightened cattle. Or leaving too late in the season. So that is the rest of what you're going to do in reading class / your homework. You need to complete this quiz before class tomorrow, okay? Then tomorrow we're going to talk, and then you'll have the 10-question assessment. We're going to do the grammar ones together, etc., etc. Does anyone have any questions currently about these 5 questions or what we talked about today? If you do not have any questions, you are free to leave my meeting. You're free to go take your quiz, and I will see my class in grammar today, and everyone else I'll see you tomorrow in reading, okay? If you have a question, now is the time to ask. Your
Bye.
Bye. Question quiz. Bye. If you have a question, please ask now.
See you laters.
Bye. Bye, guys. Bye, 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 bye.